Why liars win more than you think. Machiavelli reveals we grow up learning that honesty is a virtue, that truth is noble, that lies are the tools of cowards and villains. But what if that's not how the world really works? What if, beneath the surface of our idealistic moral education, lies an uncomfortable truth, one that history quietly whispers, but we refuse to hear? Niccolò Machiavelli, the misunderstood master of political realism, didn't just hear it. He screamed it into the void of human morality, that liars often win, not because they're evil, but because they understand something about human nature that the honest refuse to accept. This isn't just about politics. It's about life, your career, your relationships, your fears. And until we confront this truth, we'll keep losing to people who lie better than we speak. Here's the hard reality. The world does not reward truth, it rewards results. And often, the path to results is paved with deception, illusion, and manipulation. And Machiavelli knew that the person who tells the truth in a world built on appearances is actually at a disadvantage. Why? Because truth is naked, it's raw, it reveals. And humans, by nature, are afraid of being revealed. We crave comfort, not clarity. We want to feel good more than we want to understand what's real. A lie, tailored to flatter our hopes and fears, is often more persuasive than a truth that challenges us. And that's why liars win. Not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to tell people what they want to hear.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Think about it. In your own life, how often have you held back the truth because you knew people wouldn't want to hear it? How often have you softened your words, not out of kindness, but out of fear? And now ask yourself, how often have others done the same to you? We live in a dance of deception where everyone is pretending not to notice the lies we all quietly agree to believe. Machiavelli wasn't promoting evil, he was revealing the rules of a game that most of us are too noble or too naive to admit we're playing. But here's where it gets deeper. The most dangerous liars aren't the obvious ones, the con artists or the corrupt. The most dangerous are the ones who lie with good intentions. The ones who convince themselves that their manipulation is justified, that the end is noble enough to sanctify the means. Machiavelli warned us, once you cross the threshold of believing that a lie told for the greater good is acceptable, you've entered a realm where anything can be justified. And yet, this is exactly how most systems of power operate. They don't lie to harm people, they lie to maintain order, to preserve unity, to keep things from falling apart. So what does this mean for us? Should we all become liars? Should we abandon honesty as a weakness? No, but we must stop pretending that truth alone is enough. Because Machiavelli's brutal insight is not that lies are good, it's that lies are effective. And if we want to live in a world where truth can win, we have to understand the battlefield it's on. You don't win a chess match by insisting the rules should be fair, you win by playing the game with clarity, precision, and the courage to face unpleasant realities. And here's one of those realities: people believe what benefits them. If a lie makes someone feel powerful or safe or special, they will cling to it and defend it as if it were sacred. And if you try to take it away with simple truth, you'll be seen not as a liberator but as a threat. This is why so many truth-tellers are rejected, mocked, or even destroyed. Because truth, when it's not wrapped in illusion, is often unbearable. It demands change, and change is terrifying. This raises a question few of us dare to ask: do I want the truth or just a more comfortable lie? Because the answer to that question shapes everything. It determines who you listen to, what you believe, and ultimately how you live. And Machiavelli's entire philosophy rests on this insight that most people don't want to be free, they want to be secure. And to give them that security, leaders, whether political or personal, must often lie. But here's the twist. Machiavelli wasn't telling us to become liars without conscience. He was telling us to become aware of the world as it is not as we wish it to be. He believed that seeing clearly, even if it meant facing darkness, was the first step toward true power, not the power to dominate, but the power to survive with your eyes open. And that kind of power is rare, because it requires a painful honesty, not just with others, but with yourself. So I want to leave you with a question that could change how you see everything. Who are you when no one is watching? And what truths have you buried beneath the lies you tell to fit in? Because until you face those truths, until you stop demanding that the world reward your honesty and start learning how it actually works, you'll keep losing to people who understand what Machiavelli revealed, that in the game of life, truth is not self-evident. It's strategic. And if you want to wield it, you have to know when to speak it, when to guard it, and when to let it burn in silence. The anatomy of the lie, how deception shapes power and social survival, to understand why liars win more than we think. But we have to go deeper than the surface of individual dishonesty. We need to dissect the lie itself, not just as a moral failure, but as a tool, a structure, even a form of survival. Machiavelli never treated deception as a random act of wickedness. He treated it as a strategy, a move on a larger board where the stakes aren't just reputation or influence, but power, order, and even survival. Every time we lie or are lied to, something more complex is happening than we usually admit, a negotiation of reality. A subtle battle over who gets to define what is true, not in some abstract sense, but in the immediate, lived world. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't praising deception because he liked it. He was acknowledging that lies form the invisible glue of society. Without them, everything might collapse. This may sound cynical, but consider the lies that keep your daily life from falling apart. Social niceties, masks of politeness, the little exaggerations we feed our resumes, the feigned enthusiasm in conversations, the carefully curated versions of ourselves we present on social media. Are any of these outright evil? Not really. But are they true? Rarely. And yet we rely on them. Why? Because complete truth in all things would be unbearable. Social life, at its core, is a theater. We all play roles, and roles require scripts. Lies, especially subtle, socially accepted ones, are often the scripts we use to keep the play going. But Machiavelli goes beyond this. He shows us that deception isn't just a way to avoid discomfort, it's a method of control. Those who know how to lie persuasively can shape perception, and perception, in politics and life, is reality. Think about that. If enough people believe something, it doesn't matter whether it's true, it becomes a force. And in a world driven by image, reputation, and narrative, the person who controls the story controls the power. That's why liars can win. Not because the lie is more convincing than the truth, but because the lie is more useful in the moment. Truth is slow, complex, and often unpopular. Lies are fast, simple, and emotionally satisfying. Have you ever wondered why conspiracy theories spread faster than careful analysis? Why gossip travels farther than facts. Why charismatic manipulators gain influence more quickly than quiet truth-tellers. The answer is psychological. Humans are wired to respond to emotion over logic, clarity over complexity, security over uncertainty. A good lie delivers all three. It reassures, simplifies, and energizes. And this is what Machiavelli saw so clearly, that the battle for power is not a battle of truth versus falsehood, it's a battle of narratives. And the best narrative wins, even if it's built on sand. Here's where it gets personal. Whether you realize it or not, you're part of this system. You're both a target and a participant in the architecture of deception. Every time you sell a version of yourself that isn't complete, every time you withhold truths to gain approval, exaggerate to gain attention, or conform to avoid rejection, you're using the same tools Machiavelli described. You might not be manipulating kingdoms, but you're shaping your world. And that's the real revelation. Deception isn't just something bad people do. It's what everyone does when the stakes are high and the truth is inconvenient. Now ask yourself, what lie are you currently living? Is it the job you pretend to love? The relationship you tell yourself is fine? The belief system you inherited but never questioned? Machiavelli would say that the danger isn't the lie itself, it's forgetting that it is a lie. When we accept our own performances as reality, we lose the ability to act freely. We become prisoners of our own masks. And this is where deception becomes dangerous, not in the hands of the manipulator, but in the hands of the self-deceived. Because when you believe your own illusion, you stop making choices. You start reacting to a myth. And slowly you lose the power to change your story. That's when the lie wins, not just over others, but over you. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't in encouraging us to lie, it was in exposing how deeply woven deception is into the very fabric of human life. He showed us that to navigate the world with power, we have to understand the anatomy of the lie, what it does, why it works, and how it survives. The virtue of the fox, why morality without strategy is a losing game. It's tempting to believe that being good is enough. That if we live with integrity, speak honestly, and treat others with fairness, the world will reward us in kind. But Machiavelli, with the cold clarity of someone who had watched too many idealists fall, warns us otherwise. He tells us that morality without strategy is not virtue, it's vulnerability. He introduces us to a brutal but necessary truth: the world does not protect the pure-hearted. It rewards those who are not just good, but clever, not just honest, but wise, and not just strong, but subtle. This is the lesson of the fox, one of Machiavelli's most enduring metaphors, a creature who survives not by brute force or moral righteousness, but by adaptability, cunning, and the ability to read the game. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes that a ruler must learn to be both a lion and a fox. The lion represents strength, boldness, and force. But strength alone is predictable. It's visible, direct, and easy to counter. The fox, on the other hand, represents cunning, the ability to see traps, to avoid them, and to set them. The fox does not roar. It observes. It calculates. It bends the world quietly, without drawing attention to its methods. And in a world where everyone is watching, where power is subtle, and where perception often matters more than truth, the fox wins more than the lion. Now here's the part that stings. Most people are taught to be lions. We're told to be bold, to stand our ground, to speak our truth without compromise. But we're rarely taught how to navigate the shadows, how to recognize manipulation, how to defend ourselves against those who use charm as a weapon and morality as camouflage. We're taught to be good but not how to survive. And so, good people often lose, not because they lack value, but because they lack strategy. Ask yourself, have you ever been outmaneuvered by someone who didn't seem as smart, as capable, or as ethical as you? Have you ever watched someone rise through charm and manipulation while you held back, waiting for truth or fairness to catch up? That's the lion losing to the fox. It's not about intelligence, it's about awareness. The fox sees the invisible rules of the game. It knows when to speak and when to stay silent, when to flatter and when to challenge, when to appear weak and when to strike. The fox understands that winning isn't always about being right, it's about being effective. But this doesn't mean abandoning morality. That's the misconception. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for evil. He was arguing for balance. He believed that power without ethics is dangerous, but that ethics without power is useless. The true master, he said, is someone who can move through the world with a moral compass and a strategic mind. Someone who can uphold principles without being naive. Who can act with integrity but also with intelligence. This is the deeper virtue of the fox, not in deception for its own sake, but in the wisdom to know when truth serves you and when it exposes you. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you want to live a meaningful, impactful life, you must stop expecting the world to reward your goodness. But you must learn to combine your values with vision, your honesty with discernment, your kindness with boundaries. Because goodness, when it is blind, becomes weakness. But goodness, when it is awake, when it is paired with strategy, is invincible. It becomes the kind of virtue that cannot be manipulated because it sees through the illusion. It hears the lie and knows how to answer it not with outrage, but with skill. And here's a question that might keep you up at night. Have you been mistaking your passivity for morality? Because there is a kind of silence that wears the mask of goodness, but is really just fear. And there is a kind of restraint that looks like maturity, but is really just avoidance. Machiavelli challenges us to stop performing virtue and start embodying it. Not in the way we were taught, but in the way that works. A virtue that is not afraid to play the game, because it knows it can win without losing its soul. To be a fox is not to be a liar. It is to be awake in a world of sleepers. It is to hold your values tightly, but your methods loosely. It is to know that the path to truth is not always straight and to walk it anyway, with intelligence in your eyes and strategy in your step. The final illusion, why truth alone will never set you free. We've all heard the phrase, the truth will set you free. It's quoted like a sacred law, a promise that if we just cling tightly enough to honesty, everything will align. But Machiavelli would look at that promise and ask, free from what? And at what cost? The truth is not a key, it is a weight. And if you carry it without wisdom, without context, without power, it can break you before it liberates you. This is the final illusion, the belief that truth, by itself, is enough, that it is both sword and shield, that it wins battles, that it commands respect. But in the real world, the world Machiavelli knew intimately, truth is often ignored, buried, even punished. Because the truth may be noble, but it is not always useful. And in the game of power, usefulness is what survives. Let's be brutally honest. You've told the truth before, and it didn't make things better. Maybe it exposed you. Maybe it cost you a job, a relationship, a reputation. Maybe it made you feel proud but powerless. And deep down you wondered, was it worth it? This is the question most people never say out loud, because we've been conditioned to believe that truth is its own reward. But Machiavelli forces us to confront the darker reality. Truth is only as powerful as the context it lives in. A truth spoken at the wrong time, to the wrong person, in the wrong tone, is not a revelation, it's a mistake. So what do we do with this? Do we stop telling the truth? Do we join the liars? No. The point isn't to abandon truth, it's to elevate it. To stop worshipping it blindly and start wielding it wisely. The truth is a tool, a weapon, a light, but it must be aimed. It must be timed. It must be protected. And above all, it must be earned. Because when you speak the truth without understanding who's listening, without knowing what your words will do, you aren't being brave, you're being reckless. Machiavelli teaches us that the most effective truths are not shouted, they're placed strategically, like seeds in fertile soil. And sometimes the wisest thing you can do with the truth is hold it. Sit with it. Wait. Because power comes not just from what you say, but from knowing when not to say it. The silence isn't always cowardice. Sometimes it's the highest form of discipline. Especially in a world that punishes discomfort and rewards illusion. Ask yourself, what truth have I been demanding others accept that I haven't yet learned to carry with grace? Because truth without grace is brutality, and truth without strategy is futility. You see, the final illusion is not just that truth will save us, it's that truth alone will save us. But history, politics, and your own life all offer another lesson, that freedom does not come from truth alone. It comes from the power to act on it, from the courage to protect it, from the wisdom to know when it serves and when it destroys. Look back at the people you admire most, not just for their honesty, but for their impact. Did they simply speak the truth? Or did they shape it, deliver it, protect it, and use it in ways that moved people, changed systems, and built something lasting? Truth, in their hands, was not a virtue, it was a force. And that is what we are called to become, not just truth tellers, but truth strategists. Not just people who know what's real, but people who know what to do with what's real. So no, the truth will not set you free. You will set you free when you stop waiting for honesty to do the work for you. When you stop hoping the world will reward you just for being right. When you start pairing your truth with power, with timing, with courage. That's when the game changes. And that's when liars stop winning, not because they're exposed, but because you've finally learned how to win without becoming one of them.